And you're on the leader in pure classic country, 98.7 and AM 1580 WLIJ. And we're headed to the streets of Chicago once again. The Grant Park 165 coming up this Sunday, July 6th at high noon with the Motor Racing Network on WLIJ. And with me once again, the one that we got to speak to when we started going to Chicago. Back with us once more, multi-talented utility player with MRN, host of the long-running NASCAR Live program. Also MRN's weekly podcast, NASCAR Live Wide Open, NASCAR Live Race Day, the MRN pre-race show you hear before every NASCAR Cup Series broadcast with the boys in blue. You also participated with radio-style NASCAR telecasts on NBC and USA, and also during the week, the morning drive, of course, with Pete Pistone, weekdays 6 to 10 on SiriusXM NASCAR Radio Channel 90. Bagman, it is a pleasure to have you back here on WLIJ. I got to know, with the busiest travel weekend of the year, are you even just a little glad to get away from everyone that's headed to your way there in South Florida?
Well, first of all, Brandon, it's great to talk to you again. And yes, being in South Florida, not a lot of people leave town. A lot of people come to town, but I am one that is evacuating the dance floor this weekend. More than happy to spend a weekend in Chicago. What a fun weekend this is going to be. It's been fun the last couple of weekends we've done it, although we've had weather. However, looking like we may have a possibility of being more dry this weekend than others, but it's always fun when we can race in the streets of downtown Chicago. It's pretty awesome.
It really is, and there's nothing like it else on the calendar, having this street race sort of event, bringing the circus, if you will, to the people in that metropolitan area. Of course, Bagman, you've been there since the beginning of it. What's been the most thrilling part to you personally in these first two races in the streets of Chicago? Besides we're hoping for sunny conditions, of course, but you've had that time with NBC there at that turn, and what's all that been like for you?
Well, first of all, it has been amazing to watch what we do week in and week out evolve and transform into something that we can drop into the middle of a major metropolitan city. When we used to go to, say, Chicagoland, or we go to Kansas, or we go to Daytona, Talladega, Bristol, whatever track it is, the infrastructure is there. Everything that we know to be there is in its place every time we go. However, with what we've done in Chicago, we go back to obviously the same area, but our surroundings are different, right? Instead of looking off in the distance and, seeing motorhomes, we see skyscrapers, or we see Lake Michigan. And just to watch the city transform and watch us transform as a sport and be able to take our product and drop it into something like that, it's pretty amazing. The folks of Chicago have always been very friendly to us at the hotels and all the restaurants and stuff. They're happy that we're here, and they're happy that we're coming. And I just think it puts on a different event and a unique event, something that punctuates the schedule along with other unique experiences that we're able to provide. It's been a treat for sure, and it's good to hear that you've had a great experience in the first 2 years. And it also shows the power of this product when we put it on the streets, and then the possibility that we could definitely take it somewhere else if we so chose. We got another thing going on at the moment with the deal with TNT ahead with the in-season challenge, and it's been of course everyone's bracket is busted here at the start after Atlanta, but could you explain maybe for a newcomer to the sport listening in here on WLIJ what this in-season challenge is all about, and what to look for in these couple more rounds here before we have the championship event at the Brickyard? Well, obviously, if you have followed college basketball, it is along the same lines of March Madness and the either the men's or the women's NCAA tournament. So the three races leading into Atlanta were qualifying races, and they basically took the formula, applied it to, and mapped out a bracket seeding the 32 drivers and pitting them head to head like the March brackets and early April brackets that we deal with. What we've done is, after Atlanta and all the shenanigans that broke up there, we have totally wrecked everyone's bracket. There is not one that's been registered with NASCAR.com that is still intact and unscathed. They're all busted. But what this does is, for the next 4 weeks, we will whittle it down until we get to a head-to-head matchup at the Brickyard, and then those two drivers will go head-to-head, and whoever is the highest finisher will get $1 million. Now, the letdown of this whole thing is because these brackets are busted. If at the end of this there was a perfect bracket, not only would the winning driver get the $1 million, but a lucky fan would have gotten to win $1 million as well. Unfortunately, that money can be put back in a safe place, and perhaps maybe we'll rely on that money next year, but that money is off limits, and that money is safe, at least as of now.
Yeah, personally, I'd like to see that purse upped a little bit for the drivers, but that is a different story. The one is still a cool $1 million there for the winner of this in-season challenge, and looking forward to see how that all shakes out. And it makes it interesting here in the middle of the season and seeing these head-to-head matchups, like you said, like March Madness with college basketball. One in particular there, looking at Hendrick Motorsports Camp and the defending winner from last year, Alex Bowman, the only one there in the Hendrick stable not to have a win yet in 2025. How do you think that pressure sits on AB and Blake Harris, his crew chief? Of course, Chase just took care of it last weekend, so looking in the meeting room today, or Monday, it might be the 48 that might be on the hot seat.
Well, it's funny you bring that up, because I had a chance to visit with Chad Knaus this morning on SiriusXM, and I asked him to assess the 48 team. And while on the outside, to all of us, it may look like that Alex Bowman is, perhaps his fanny is on the flames, so to speak. It's not. They're on the verge of winning. There's a lot of confidence there. And right now, all attempts are trying to get that 48-car win. 3/4 of the Hendrick fleet are in. And then Alex and Blake are obviously out with the 48-car. But it is through challenges. If you look at everybody's scheduling, their finishing positions and whatnot this year, everybody's had a challenge of some sort. They've been cleaning things up. They've been tightening things up. But with what we've seen recently from Alex on road courses, obviously what we saw at Atlanta last weekend, the 48 car has speed. Now they just need execution and closure in order to get that win and complete the winning ways of the Hendrick fleet here in 2025.
I did hear from Larry McReynolds today on SiriusXM. He talked to Rick Hendrick and how Mr. H feels like this is the best driver lineup probably that he's ever had. And that really is saying something when you look back at the lineups of old for Hendrick Motorsports. That is some tall words there. So really looking to see how this legacy continues for Hendrick and the stellar lineup they have in the present day. One start here for the number 13 entry of Colleague Racing. They're bringing back Australian V8 superstar Will Brown. How do you see his chances here at Chicago getting another run at it?
Well, as long as he's got the equipment, I think that he can make an impact. Obviously, everybody will be laid up against SVG this weekend. Shane Van Gisbergen, who is one of his counterparts down under. I believe that if the Colleague folks can give him the equipment that he needs, can give him, obviously they've got the power, but as far as the chassis setup and the handling and all that, and if he can get some comfort, I believe he could get a top 10 finish. Who's to say that if things don't go the right way, that he might be the one to upset everything? I think it's great that these Australian V8 supercar drivers are coming over. And obviously SVG paid the way for that, especially with this win that he had in Chicago 2 years ago.
Finally, I'm a firm believer that when the sport's most popular driver can get a winless streak hump out of the way, everybody in the industry benefits. And I think that really goes here for Chase Elliott from last Saturday at Echo Park Speedway. What's his outlook with crew chief Alan Gustafson at Chicago this weekend? Definitely consistency has been swinging their way.
Alan told me this morning it's hammer down. All they're focused on is going into Chicago. They're moving on to Sonoma. They've gotten the first. They want more. And what comes along with more of those wins are playoff points. And right now, Chase only has 5 of them. So while I think the most is 26 or 28, I believe, they've got work to do in that department. But I do think that what that performance did on Saturday night in Atlanta for that 9 team is reinstill the confidence that they can do this. They've been close. They've been knocked down a lot. It was almost like they had hit a glass ceiling, but I think that they have broken through that. And I'm not saying that just because he won at Atlanta, he's going to go out and win 8 more races. But what I do believe is that was a team that was on a threshold, and they crossed that threshold. With doing that gives a lot of confidence. Some people call it momentum. I call it just renewed enthusiasm. And they've always been enthusiastic, but right now they've got the wind at their backs. And we'll see what they can do. Chase is the active driver with the most road course wins with 8 or 7. If he wins Sunday, it'll be 8th. He'll be tied for second on the all-time list with Tony Stewart, 1 behind Jeff Gordon with 9. So I think that perhaps maybe if situations align and Allen can give Chase what he needs, he could go back-to-back. Remains to be seen, though. That's why everybody will need to listen this weekend, my friend.
Indeed. Yes. Many things to focus on and lots of full steam ahead there for the 9 camp. Thanks so much, Bagman, for coming on once again. And it was nice to be able to have you chosen here for us to talk about the Chicago Street Course, talking about it with the inaugural event a couple of years ago. Safe travels, my friend, and a happy 4th of July. And we wish you the best.
We appreciate it, my friend. Thank you, Brandon. Always a pleasure talking to you.
Catch the Grant Park 165, Sunday, July 6th at noon with the Motor Racing Network on WLIJ.